All right. Hello, everyone. We are making this up as we go along. I asked
Absolutely.
Finn, I'm like, should we plan a little bit or should we just like
Well,
go
I
for it?
called Drew earlier and I was like, he was going nuts in the group me because he's like, oh, I got to get to work. And I was like, okay, me too. And then I called him back an hour later. I was like, oh, let's be honest, neither of us are working today. So we decided, hey, why not pod? Because we have nothing better to do on a Friday night. So here we are talking about off-season baseball when the league's not even open. Much to my dismay, honestly, I wish we were open, but and the fear of getting kicked by JD once again, I'll hold that to myself.
I don't think it was confirmed it was JD. It
It
doesn't
was
actually say.
100% JD who kicked me. It doesn't say, but it was 100% John DeWong.
Maybe we just address the elephant in the room right off the bat. Do you just want to ask the question?
What's that?
The question that got you kicked.
When does the league open?
Okay.
Well, and I want to be honest. I want to separate this into two categories because I understand why we don't want to do prospects right now. I understand why we don't want to do some league functions, but I truly believe that we could be open for trades. I don't think there's going to be that many that happen, but I also think there's some people who maybe have a trade or two or something they want to get ready for, come when prospect times opens. Maybe, hey, I want to get some BAM ahead of time, before the valuations of BAM change. So I think it could be interesting to open the trade window like immediately. But I understand not wanting to do prospects and all that stuff.
So great question. And I like that you broke it down into like the several things that like what does opening the league actually mean? Let's go through this for just a minute. Well, number one, we've said from the start of the new year, kind of going back into the holidays when people have like really been asking about this and we see trade discussions and everything in the group chat. We
I'm
needed to
100%
align.
convinced that there are trades ready to be fired like as soon as we open,
I know, I know. We needed to align on rules first because we
which
need
has been
no
done.
surprises. Right. We've done that now. That was step one. And maybe we can go over the rule changes as another part of this pod, but let me focus on the question. So that's the first aspect of it. Number two, we are not going to open the league until ESPN resets its servers for the year. So we all know when this date comes because we have multiple people who will open up the group chat and open up the fantasy app because they still are in a habit of doing it like every day, like I do, and they'll be like, "Oh, the fantasy baseball site's down for maintenance or whatever that message is," then um, and then they'll open it up a couple days later, right? Hopefully, there's like some new features. I would love to see them continue to expand the league history tab that you can access. I think that's like an important part of all this. When that happens, that will be the next milestone to us opening up the league. At that point, we'll consider opening up trades for and roster changes for BAM bids. Just like we've done the last 2 years, we will be having a BAM auction draft to kick off the season.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I got distracted by your deer head in the background.
I need to mount it on the wall. I've been lazy.
So we will be having the BAM live auction draft, and this it goes in hand with one of the rule changes. There will be one or two players that are not prospects that will also be subject to BAM bidding as commissioner designated bids. We'll see how that process goes this
Now I
year.
gotta say, because I want to voice my opinion on this. This covers like one or two guys a year, maybe. It's such a rarity that I don't know if we really needed a rule about it.
It's because it's a rarity we need a rule. If it was a
Okay.
common thing, then we wouldn't bother having a rule about it. The fact is that it's something because it happens once or twice a year. It's something that we can control as commissioners, and we think it's a more fair process to player acquisition. Um, so hopefully that gives you the roadmap. No trades yet. Wait for ESPN to reset
Boo.
their servers.
Boo. I think I mirror most of the league sentiment in booing that.
I get it. I get it. Let's get past the Super Bowl, guys. We haven't even had the college football national championship yet. Like, we're not out of
Coming
football
up.
season. Let's get into baseball season. I know the MLB hot stove is turning. Let's talk about that for a second.
I was gonna
And I
say
know you
because
have
we
some
just had
choice
the
thoughts
inter.
on Kyle. I know you have some choice thoughts on Kyle Tucker. Definitely Bo Bichette.
Do we really want to talk about that stuff? It's so depressing just to hear about the state of baseball that it's like I think we're all you don't believe there's going to be a lockout come 2027, but I think most people, myself included, are convinced that there's going to have to be a lockout. I mean, the state of the game is unsustainable at this rate. I mean, you have teams that literally, as much as the owner may want to try, cannot physically afford to roster a $500 million a year team. They just can't do it.
Why do those owners even want to try to compete? They're like, well, we're never gonna be close to the Dodgers. Like, so why spend it all?
And you know what? Kyle Tucker isn't that good to deserve that kind of contract. This was purely a, hey, we don't want anyone else to have him, so we'll take him when we can afford to do it.
It's 100%
Like,
what it 100%. So maybe let's not focus on the depressing, like real life aspects of this. Adam has Kyle Tucker, and he is a perennial playoff contender.
oh,
How
I mean,
good?
his offense just got way better. Just from a standpoint, I mean, his runs and RBIs that he's going to have every, these next 4 seasons or whatever it is, are going to go through the roof.
The Otani Tucker stack. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Man, if you have a Dodgers outfield prospect, because they have some elite ones, I feel like you start to get a little worried about these as well, because Kyle Tucker's never opting out of his. I know there's opt outs and they don't. Well, he's never opting out of a $60 million contract.
It actually makes him the 15th most valuable per year player in all of sports worldwide, not just baseball, in terms of what he's making per year. This is like Saudi fucking soccer contract, crazy. That's what this is. And, it's happening inside of a sport that's supposed to have some level of parity, and that has just gone out the window. And I know Drew and I talked about this, but I think people are past the idea of like, oh, well, if these teams just spent some money and weren't so cheap, they can compete. No, there's multiple teams that do not have the physical ability to spend $500 million a year. Honestly, there's more teams that can't than there are teams that can. Even if the Reds said, hey, we're going to put every single cent into contracts for any given year, they'd max out at about $350 million. But you're still $150 million short. It's impossible.
Yeah. We have plenty more thoughts on the real life aspect of this. Just from a fantasy perspective, I'll just also say I saw a graph that had Andy Pajes as the Dodgers' number 9 hitter. And you're like, okay, maybe that's a one weakness. Andy Pajes hit 270 with like 30 bombs last year, something like that. Or like 27 homer, something like that. He was really good. Kind of sucks for Max that I guess Pajes was going to be at the bottom of the order anyway, but like.
So I got a question for you, because it just happened, the international signing window. Are you, or do you think anyone else after my successes is going to follow suit and start really digging into the international market?
I wanted to dig into Bo Bichette first, but all right, we can go.
Oh my God. Nobody wants to talk about Bo Bichette besides you. He's not a good fantasy asset. He's a great baseball player, not a good fantasy asset. But anyway, international market.
I think the opposite. I feel like people are like happy their team didn't sign him because he's like a glorified DH. He's not good at defense. He's not good at running the bases, but like he puts up those slash line stats.
Whoever gives him $50 million a year is going to regret that contract.
I'll just give my thoughts for 2 seconds on it because as the owner of Bo Bichette, I'm impacted by this. I'm fine with it being the Mets. I think he could have gone anywhere, and it's not going to affect it.
That's Soto-Bo stack.
Look, the Mets took Soto and turned him into a massive stolen base threat. If anything, maybe Bo Bichette turns on the engines a little bit on the base paths. That would be
a good thought.
That would be cool. Okay, international prospects. If that's where you want to go. I was looking at the list of international prospects last night, but not this year's crop because I wanted to go into.
My God, you're looking at like 15-year-olds.
I wanted to see just how irrelevant these guys usually are. So if I go back and I click on like 2022 and I look at the international prospects, top 5, I'm going to show my phone on screen. Number 1, Roderick Arias. Number 2, Christian Vaquero. Number 3, Ricky Cabrera. 4, William Bergola. And 5, Oscar Colas. These guys suck. By and large, these guys suck. Andrew Salas, I think, was number 1
But
last
honestly,
year.
Drew, you can do that with any given.
2090 last year.
You can do that with any given draft classes. There's good and there's bad classes, and that was a bad class. Go look at 2021, 2020, 2019. I want to see them because I guarantee you they're not as bad as that.
There's some studs in there, but it's just like it's not obvious who are the studs.
No, it's not obvious, and the international market is a big risk, but it also gives you the ability to get some of these guys who, are lottery tickets in a way. You could hit it huge on the cheap. And I think, when you got these first round guys of ours who are going to be top picks, going for 30, 40, 50, 60 BAM, hey, let me take 30 BAM and go get 6, 8 of these international guys. And hey, maybe he turns into Ronald Acuna. Hey, maybe he turns into Fernando Tatis. There's certainly big value players to be had there. Now, I hope no one does, and I can snag them all up again, because right now I'm sitting on the number 3 prospect in all of baseball, and I got 2 or 3 more coming who are going to break the top 100 this year, and they were all 5 BAM.
So okay, to be fair, and to answer your question in a real sense, I do think your recent success with that strategy is going to result in there being more competitive bids for the new crop of international prospects this year. I fully expect that any guy in the top 5 of the international prospect rankings this year, I'm talking, it looks like, I'm just on MLB.com, Luis Hernandez, Wandy Oxygen, Francisco Renteria, on Habel Gomez, and Johinzi Colome. I thought there was another guy that the Giants signed. Maybe that's Luis Hernandez. I expect each of those guys to go for at least 10 BAM, just because they've seen the success that you had with Leo DeVries and what's expected with people like Jose Perdomo. So, yes, Ben, congrats on your success. I do think that it's
a strategy that I think is untapped.
It's causing an impact.
It's an untapped strategy, and I hope everyone thinks I'm an idiot, and I hope everyone stays away, and I can get all these guys again for 5 BAM, because I'm just stunned that it has been ignored as long as it has been ignored in our league. I mean, year to year. I mean, the international market was a joke. Nobody was spending BAM on getting these guys.
It's a joke because it's so volatile. It's like these are the high.
If you're in hell and you're so far down that, hey, I need an impact. I just need to take the chance, and you can't afford to go out and get a 40 or 50 BAM first rounder. Here's your avenue. It's riskier, no doubt.
Right, but with the price rising, Ben, the strategy may change, because
that's going to be the thing.
Method, right, your method. You talked about spend 30 BAM, get 5 to 6 of these guys. Well, 30 BAM, because of the success you've had, may only get you 2 of these guys. So that you've had an impact. It is what it is. So yeah, I mean, those are going to be guys that we expect to see bid on in the international, or sorry, in the BAM live draft window. You know who else we're going to see in the BAM window, Ben? We're going to see Tatsuya Imai. We're going to see, I can't remember his name, that one guy who signed for the Blue Jays, basically the Bo Bichette replacement there. And we're going to probably see some bids on some catchers. You want to give your thoughts on the additional catcher?
Listen, I love the additional catcher. I think, Drew and I have had this conversation because there's been talks about, do we add another position? But, well, no, because there's the problem of there's too many catchers and too many decent catchers to where they're not being utilized. Nobody's really, I mean, maybe there's 1 or 2 guys, but nobody's really going to be putting a catcher in a utility slot over, say, any other position player, an outfielder, a first baseman, whatever it is. So the idea that, okay, now we can actually take advantage and teams can get rewarded for having 2 good catchers versus feeling like, oh, it's kind of sucks that I have to keep this guy, because even a middling outfielder, usually can kind of hit the numbers that a decent to good, catcher can get. So I think it's great. I think it's a long time overdue, but glad we're here.
I think if we never implemented the universal DH, we also wouldn't be having this conversation. I think the universal DH really allowed catchers to have more offensive value, which is what's important in fantasy leagues. Like somebody like Ivan Herrera on the Cardinals or Tyler Stevenson on the Reds for you, if we're in a league where if we're in a world where there's still no DH in the National League, Tyler Stevenson and Ivan Herrera have very little offensive value because they're not everyday catchers. And to your point, they're still not everyday players where they're going to play 162 like another player may. They're going to get more off days. But the universal DH, I think, is an interesting aspect because you only need like 10 games to play catcher. So you really only have to be your team's second or third string catcher to have some fantasy value if you're going to be DHing most of the time.
I want to go back to the international for 1 second. So my top guy this year, and I'll tell everybody, is Johansi Cologne of the Athletics. This dude, all right, his comp, wait for it, the guy that JD got cheap, Junior Caminero. That is his comp. Yeah.
Johansi Cologne.
Yeah. And
55 hit, 65 power, 50 run.
And they say a plus arm. Figures at third base, possibly shortstop.
He's got MLB pedigree. His dad played 10 years in the majors.
His uncle pitched 11 big leagues, 11 seasons in the bigs. So, yeah, big fan. And he's an A's guy, so he can be right there with Leo DeVries, winning World Series.
You're crazy.
But yeah, no, I'm very excited. Obviously, you can tell, for the league to open back up and to be able to bid on some prospects again, because I'm frothing at the mouth to get some of these guys.
So, all right, are you done talking about?
Yes, I am. I'll stay away from it.
That's all good. We talked about adding a catcher. The other one which maybe for good reason we haven't talked about as much. We're also adding a relief pitcher spot. I did not do the proper amount of research for this, but I did just Google what was the percentage of innings pitched by relievers in Major League Baseball. It's like up 5% over the last decade, which is substantial. It's about 40% now, the amount of innings pitched by relief pitchers. I went to our championship game last year, and JD and Sean pitched like 22 and 18% of innings respectively by relief pitchers. And as soon as I saw that, I was just like, we have an issue in the league where we are not.
The starters are too heavily weighted.
Yeah. So we got to get some more relief pitchers. I'm happy to be adding a relief pitcher spot. If we weren't already a save holds league, we would be implementing save holds. I think the holds is very important for fantasy baseball. So I think we're in a good spot for that. I'm just so curious what people's strategies are going to be. Before we had this, we still had teams like Sean in the past try like a relief pitcher heavy strategy. And is that going to make a comeback? And we're going to see even more teams do it. I'm actually fascinated to see how teams build their pitching staff.
I think these rule changes fit my team perfectly because I got a dearth of relief pitchers and I got 3 great catchers. So I am in love with these rule changes. And
I don't think you're using the word dearth correctly.
Doesn't dearth mean like a great amount? Oh, maybe I'm using it wrong.
A surplus
Of relief pitchers. But these rule changes fit my team very, very well. So I'm very, very happy, and I genuinely think that even in our current form, the reliever strategy could work. And I just think Sean had great success with it, and then abandoned it the first time it failed. Well, of course, anything's going to fail on a given day. If something's not going to work one time, it doesn't mean that it's not a successful strategy. And I think to a degree, I had that last year. I had led the league in save holds, or I was second place in save holds. I had a decent ERA and WHIP. If my starters weren't so god awful, I think I would have had a lot more success. So if we have another reliever slot, great, because I don't have that many starting pitchers. So I'm not going to complain.
Are you ready to hear an unannounced rule change? You'll be the first in the world to hear this.
God, let's hear it.
It's not massive, but there obviously by adding 2 roster spots, we're going to be expanding rosters. And so the question is going to be, well, how do we manage that? Are we going to do like a draft to like have people draft catchers and stuff? And I think realistically, people are going to be loading up on catchers towards the end of this season to be ready going into next season anyway. Um, so we've decided that the way that we're going to do this is typically most everyone is rostering 3 IL players in their IL spots entering the start of the new season, and then we make everyone drop 3 players to cut down to 30. We're just gonna allow you to keep those 2 extra IL spots, like two out of the 3. So if you have 3 IL spots today, in 2027, so next year, you'll be able to keep 2 out of those 3 IL spots, and you'll only have to drop 1 player from your roster. That gets you to 32. And then if you haven't prepared for the 2027 catcher and relief,
Go fuck yourself.
It's going to be a free for all. It's going to be a shit show. So
no, I mean, honestly, if you're not preparing for it now, relievers are different. Relievers, you can find somebody towards the end of the season. I fully believe that. But the good catchers are going to be gone like that.
Yeah, well, that is exactly why we wanted to do the rule changes before we open the league so people know how to prepare. Just an update as well. The Bam Chise tag lottery proposal did not pass. So we're doing nothing with a Bam Chise tag lottery and DFAing players this year. Similarly, the consolation bounty bracket stuff, if there was any confusion, is not going to be implemented, but we are going to be seeding the consolation bracket this year. We talked about the commissioner designated bids momentarily. I have nothing else to say about that. There will be a buy-in, still discussing the actual buy-in amount. And then the BAM infusion amounts will be adjusted. So we're going to give the poor teams a little bit more. We're going to starve the richer teams a little bit more just to increase that parity incrementally.
We don't want to be Major League Baseball here.
We're already seeing positive impacts from previous changes that we've made, and we're just trying to speed it up even a little bit more. We don't want to go crazy here. My suggestion was 15 BAM to the league champion, and like I was talked down off that ledge because that is a little bit too extreme. So all this to say, good, healthy changes for the league, hopefully all around. BAM infusion amounts, Ben. I think that's another offseason thing people are wanting to know about. They're in the sheet. You're just not going to see them right now. We will be releasing those sooner rather than later, however. You'll be able to see live what everyone's amounts are. No, Jack does not actually have -6 BAM. That's something that needs to be fixed on the sheet.
Watch out, everyone. I'm going to have 15 BAM for the first time in probably 3 years.
It's going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy. Okay, what else you want to talk about?
Any other rule changes that you want to cover?
No, those are the rule changes. Wouldn't expect anything big for at least a couple years after this. We should be pretty steady.
I like it.
JD signed his 6-year contract.
Yes, he did. Thank God.
We tried to get him for 10. Ultimately got him to 6. There is some important language in there though. If he has a season sweep of Ben, it automatically adds 1 year to the contract. So if he sweeps you all 6
Well, I'm sorry, JD's only going to have 6 years on his contract then, because it's not happening ever again. Ever again. The train is in full motion this year, cannot be stopped. It's going to be a great season.
I wonder how many times it's happened in the past.
Well, I'm sure quite a few.
Let's get instant reaction. Who are your 3 playoff teams in each conference this year?
The 3 playoff teams in each conference. Well, I'm going to go Adam and Sean. I don't think anyone in either of those divisions has made enough progress to really dethrone them yet. I think Perry's, on good track. I always obviously hate Max's team, so I'm not voting for Max. I don't think your team is very good, and I think you have way too many Cardinals players on your team. And as much as you want to he and haw about the Cardinals, winning the 86 games this year just by making a few changes, it's not going to happen. They're a bad team. So I don't think you're taking that spot. I'd give that third spot to Jack. In my conference, I think JD, and then I think it's either going to be Graydon or Jacob, winning that division. I think Jacob is the better manager, but I think Graydon is willing to make I don't know what the proper wording for it would be, but if Graydon could be the owner and Jacob could be the manager, I think they'd win championships upon championships. So I think it's going to be a duel between those two. And then between me and Vinny, obviously I'm going to finish ahead of Vinny. Vinny's the worst team in the league. So then really it's me fighting whoever that number 2 spot is in the other division for that third spot. And I'd like to think that I come out ahead, but very happy with how I ended the season last year and hopefully carry some of that forward.
It's so funny. Graydon was the consensus pick to win his division both of the 2 years he's been in it. He's not won it either year. Could you imagine if for the
he's like year, he second guesses his managerial decisions way too much. There's too much micromanaging going on.
You got to account for that. Could you just imagine if consensus once again is Graydon's going to win his division this year, and then Jacob once again does it?
I know, that's what I'm saying. Jacob is the better manager, no doubt, and I think Graydon himself would agree with that. Jacob is an extremely good manager. Poor Ryan.
No respect for Ryan.
No respect for Ryan, the man that destroyed his team, left Perry with garbage, and then is purely unapologetic about it. It's just straight up rude.
In fact, not only has Graydon not won, he's finished last place in his division both years, despite being the consensus favorite.
I think, and maybe that's just the history of me playing fantasy football with Graydon and fearing him, and maybe I just don't need to fear Graydon in fantasy baseball. Maybe it's just not his sport. Maybe he needs to rethink things.
So here's an interesting little tidbit I saw the other day. I was reviewing the Aaron Judge trade, the first one, not the second one, the one I made with Ryan to get Aaron Judge. He got Nick Lodolo. There's a lot of hype about Nick Lodolo this offseason. He had a very good year last year. There's a world where Nick Lodolo is a top 15-ish, top 20 pitcher in fantasy this year and kind of going.
There's a world out there. I'm not sure if it's this world, but, maybe on some world.
There's a world out there, and not that is commensurate to Aaron Judge at all. Did you know Ryan I traded Kevin McGonigal away in that trade as well?
Kevin McGonigal has been bounced around to so many different teams, and it's crazy that he's where he's at.
He's now the consensus number 2 prospect, and people think he's going to be a perennial all-star. And I'm like, okay, if he traded away McGonigal, if he had kept McGonigal and Lodolo maintains this kind of trajectory he's on, that's not the worst trade in the world for Aaron Judge.
No, it's still pretty bad.
He'd have a little bit of dignity.
I would have thought you, of all people, would understand what trading away a top 5 player in baseball does. And I mean, look what's happened. You traded 2 of them. You had 2 of the 5. You had
Soto
Judge
wasn't performing like a top 5.
You gave him 2 months, but we're not going to talk about the Soto trade right now. But at the same time, I would never be in a position where I would feel comfortable trading someone like Aaron Judge for a top prospect and a top 25 pitcher. That, to me, in no way, it's way too much risk for what you're going to get from Aaron Judge.
I'm with you. I'm just saying, if Ryan had kept McGonigal, it would have been interesting because we all said it was so bad at the time. But, I tried to preach. I'm like, just wait. Let's see what these guys do. And if Ryan had kept McGonigal and he had McGonigal and Lodolo to stand on, it would look a little bit better today than it did. It's just interesting. Let's be patient before we
And then do you know what you want to know what he traded Kevin McGonigal for?
That I don't know.
Ken Bam and Tyler Fitzgerald. So that's what I'm saying. So it's like there was no world in which Kevin McGonigal was a top prospect ever, but look at him now, consensus number 2.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy how little we actually know and think.
And then and then somehow Adam traded him to Graydon. Graydon ended up with Kevin McGonigal, and then Ryan traded back for Kevin McGonigal for Ellie De La Cruz, for Grayson Rodriguez, Kobe Mayo, O'Neal Cruz, Kevin McGonigal, and a bunch of BAM.
I'm sorry. Hold on. Wait, does Ryan have McGonigal today? I swore Graydon had him.
No, and then he traded him back to Graydon again. And then I had him at some point in there. This dude's been traded at least 8 times.
Earlier this offseason, I tried to see who the most traded player was of all time.
I think it might be Kevin McGonigal.
It might be McGonigal.
You would really have to see, because I've owned him, Adam's owned him, Graydon's owned him twice, Ryan's owned him 3 times.
He appears 18 times in this, which means I think he's been featured in 9 trades.
Yeah, there you go.
Xavier Edwards for Jonathan India and Kevin McGonigal.
He was treated like garbage. He was traded around for nothing. He was always the 4th man in a trade. He was never the centerpiece, and now he's a consensus number 2.
I love how I traded you Alauris Montero and Von Brown for Blake Walston and Kevin McGonigal. That would have been a great trade for me. Are you up to date on like top 10 prospects right now, Ben?
I got to be honest, I haven't really looked at that. I've been kind of just scoping out my own guys, but haven't really looked at the general scheme of everything.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about like top 10, but it makes sense that you're more focused on your own guys. Do you have any prospects on your team that maybe we're not talking enough about? Like
Emil Morales and Elian Pena. Now,
what's their ETAs?
Elian Pena is probably going to be 3 to 4 years out. I think Emil Morales, again, Dodgers player. Got to remember that, Dodgers player. I think Emil Morales will be here, not this season, but if we have a 2027 season, that's when he'll show up.
I think Emil Morales in 27, so in 2 years. His ETA was 2029, but who knows?
You know what?
We'll probably trade him for Tarek Skubal.
This is one of those cases where I think our thinking is a little archaic. Teams are really, these top international prospects, these top young guys, they don't spend a lot of time in the farm anymore. It's getting to the point where if you've got a good team and your window of opportunity is now, and this guy can hit on AA and AAA pitching, they're going to call him up.
I will be so curious because obviously that's happened, to your point, recently. Like, let's think about Jackson Chourio, for instance. I'm going to be super curious what happens this year with Jesus Made, Luis Pena, and Leodalis DeVries. Maybe they don't get called up. Maybe they do. I'm curious if any of them start to falter this year, because right before those 3 was Ethan Salas. And Ethan Salas like can't miss. Juan Soto at the plate, elite catcher. Like, this guy's awesome. And he's like, I would not even consider him a top 100 prospect. So those 3 guys I mentioned, Luis Pena, Jesus Made, DeVries, I'm like laser focused on if they show any signs of faltering this year.
It's a huge risk.
Otherwise, to your point, that's what we're seeing. That's the trend. And
yeah, I think the idea that these international guys are going to sit for 5 years in the minors is just, if you're a top talent, it's just not going to happen anymore. You're going to get 2 or 3 years, and then they're going to be up. I read so many articles, not to talk about my guy, but people are like, we fully expect Leo DeVries to be up this year. Like, that is genuinely something that is a distinct possibility, especially with the A's, how good their offense has been. Adding on to that, replacing a guy like Max Muncy over at third base, or Max Schumann, or I can't remember what his name is. Schumann. Those are obviously holes in the roster. Hey, you can throw a guy in there who's another bat to pair with Kurt Soderstrom, Jacob Wilson, Shea Langeliers, Brent Rooker. Throw all those guys together with Leo DeVries, and you probably got one of the top offenses in the league. And if they can improve their pitching at all, the A's are a playoff team, which is crazy considering they don't even own the name rights to their own name.
All right, I got a question for you. Based on winning percentage, so like 500, 525, 600, right? Based on winning percentage, who finishes with a better record this year, you or the Cincinnati Reds? You. So, do you think the Reds are a above 500 team?
I think they're hovering right around it. I think probably a little bit below. Last year did not inspire me with a lot of confidence. I don't think they made any moves this season to really make the team all that much better. I know everyone played like dog shit last year, but them playing like dog shit also means I have no confidence in their ability to turn it around going forward. And I hope I'm wrong. I paid for my season tickets already, so I hope that they're good. But at the same point, I don't have any faith in that. I mean, we really needed to get Kyle Schwarber, and of course, we made the cheapest of the four offers that he got. Would have loved to have him because he would have hit 50 bombs a year in Great American.
Um, who would have you rather had, Schwarber or Tucker?
Schwarber, absolutely, because like you and I talked about earlier, Kyle Tucker's not that great defensively, and we've got some good defensive guys. That's not something we struggle with. So it's like we don't really have a designated DH. It's kind of a rotating job between like someone like Will Benson will have it some days, and then some days it's gonna be like Steer, and some days it's gonna be CES, and it's kind of rotating a hodgepodge. But hey, you throw Schwarber in there every day, that is an immediate offensive plus to that team. I don't care about his defense, like
If you were the
unimportant.
Reds, if you were the GM of the Reds, sorry, this is like rapid fire question.
Yeah.
If you were the GM of the Reds, would you consider trading one of Hunter Green or Nick Lodolo for a for an offensive piece?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, I think the idea that okay, the Reds have a lot of young pitchers. We've got a stable of guys coming up, and a lot of times they're held up because there's somebody in front of them. And the offense has been our major problem. We just don't have any consistent superstar level producers who are going to go out there and get you, a constant. And we really, really need that.
I wonder if there was any trade talk amongst the Reds and the Diamondbacks about Ketel Marte, because Ketel Marte, he has experience at second.
Here's the problem. We can't take on a contract like that again. We're on the hook for 30, 40 million dollars a year for a guy. It's gonna end up poorly because we've done that so many times. But what happens if that guy falls apart? We can't just eat that contract like the bigger teams can. That really
I have no
affects.
idea what Ketel Marte's contract is, so
I don't know either. Let me look.
but he's like that quasi all-star level production. He can play second base. He's got experience in the outfield. Obviously, the Diamondbacks are trying to load up on pitching as they've shown the last couple years. I just think it maybe that could have been something.
Ketel Marte's making about $20 million a year for 6 years.
And that's expensive for Cincinnati.
Yeah, and again, it's not that I'm like, oh man, I'm worried he's going to end up sucking. I mean, I obviously am. That can happen with anybody, but for a team to eat a 20, $30 million contract for this guy when, I don't know. I don't know, but I definitely would be open to trading a pitcher for an offensive piece. I think it's definitely what the team needs.
But you would trade one. You would be open to trading one of the top two, Ladola or Green.
100%.
Interesting. Okay.
But you got to get a guy who's in his arbitration years or his, he's team controlled. I don't want to trade a top pitcher for a guy who's under a big contract. I think that's when you get into trouble.
Um. Okay. Maybe the last question, then we can just wrap this up and have a bit of a shorter podcast anyway.
Yeah.
Um.
AKA Drew's running
it's
out of
starting
things
to
to
get
talk
dark.
about.
I can see it's starting to get dark.
Yeah, it's starting to snow here.
That's crazy. Beautiful down in Texas. Anyone wants to come visit and come golf with me or something, feel free. Um, Last question is: you were the worst team in the league before
Yeah.
you got Soto. You now have Juan Soto.
Yes.
If and I am not wishing this, I'm not trying to hold a grudge or anything like that. If Juan Soto was to have an injury that forced him to miss most of the season this year, is your team equipped to deal with that this year, or would you go back to being the worst team in the league without Soto?
I don't think I'd go back to being the worst team, but I definitely would be bottom of the pile. I have no doubt. I mean, you ask Adam if Adam lost Shohei Ohtani, it's going to have a marked impact upon his team. Even a great team can't withstand losing a superstar.
It's pretty telling that you can turn around from being the worst team in the league. And if you're a contender with Juan Soto this year, That's wild because I could never build anything close to a contender with Juan Soto as the main
It's like
piece.
that meme I posted the other day, Joe. Maybe you need to take a hard look in the mirror, about what you were doing. You traded two of the top five players in baseball, and yet you couldn't build a playoff
It
team
would
around them.
it would be very damning to me as an owner and a manager if you were to be a five, an above 500 team, to be honest. So I will be rooting against you the whole year.
I know you will, of course you will. But you have another top five player, so don't trade him away this time because you
Who's my
found
top
another
five
one.
player?
Nick Kurtz. I mean, I don't think there's anybody. I don't think I don't know if top five is the right. I think because he just doesn't steal bases like some of the top five do. But he's most certainly a top 15, top 10 player. I don't think there's
I
anybody out
thought
there.
you were gonna say Gunner.
No, I think Gunnar has fallen by the wayside. I mean, I think that I know it's rough, and I'm not trying to hold a single season against him considering what he did his first time around. He just looks like a totally different player. It doesn't
I
look
think it
like the
was
same
just
guy out
I
there.
think it was a weird year in Baltimore, and he had an injury. He didn't get spring training because he was injured during spring training. I just think it was a weird year. Throw it out the window.
But you know what? If you can get him back and then you have Nick Kurtz, there is zero reason you shouldn't be beating Perry or Max, or Jack for that matter for that third playoff spot. Because let's be honest with yourself. You're thinking Sean's going to take that spot, in your division, right? Like that's your estimation
You
too.
know what? That I love. Let's just end the podcast right here when I say, for the first time in years, I think I might be higher on Jack than the consensus. I think for the first time ever, people might be underrating him. I actually like Jack's team going into this year. I also like Sean's team. I'm very scared for myself this year. Even if I was a good team, my division once again looks unattainable. It's just too good.
All right, well, everyone, I think Drew and I are both extremely excited, to kick this off, probably more so me than maybe some of the commissioners. But I know we're all really looking forward to it and looking forward to another great year. Oh, one last thing before we go. Have we decided on a dollar amount for the buy-in?
No, but there will be
Okay.
one.
Okay. All right. Well, take care, everyone, and can't wait to see what everyone
Thank you for
says.
joining, Ben. Always a pleasure.